Kia ora koutou. First of all, thanks to Caleb and the Nite team, and thank you also to Little A for hosting these events. Aren't we so lucky to have such a great venue in the middle of Otautahi? First, before I start, I just want to warn the environmentalists in the room that I'm going to be talking about lots of little pieces of plastic. So just be mindful. We'll get through this. Hit the right button. Here we go. Now here's something that I hope all of you can relate to. Now this is the humble 4x2 Lego brick. Now Lego's a toy that all of us, grew up with, or most of us grew up with. It's been pretty popular, bring this over here, to the point where it's become almost a universal language. Playing with Lego is something that a lot of us can relate to. Now tonight I'm going to talk to you about a story, my personal story, and share a few things that I've learned along the way. So these are my Lego memories as a kid. So one of my early memories as a 6-year-old, went to Farmer's department store in central Christchurch and saw this awesome Lego display. And I was blown away. You could say that, it had a big impact on me. Here are some of the first sets that I owned. Now, Lego was pretty basic back then, and what I really enjoyed was the basic characters like the knights and the space themes from the late 80s. So naturally I grew out of Lego, but in my teens I found that I still had an inkling, so I'd bring out the Lego that I had as a child and I'd start building things. I was a big Star Wars fan, so I'd build things like this R2-D2. But little did I know that the Star Wars theme would become a licensed theme as part of the Lego world. Now fast forward to 2009. I rediscovered Lego as an adult. I bought a big second-hand collection, and the best thing about it was there were no instructions. Now, we were living in Melbourne at the time, and I decided I'd put some of my creations on display at a show called Brickvention, which was a huge Lego event that was run by the fans. And it was around that time that I realised that I had entered the world of the AFOL. Do we have any AFOLs in the audience? No? Can't see any hands? So AFOL stands for Adult Fan of Lego. Okay? All right, you with me now? Cool. Now through this process, I became aware of websites such as bricklink.com. Now Bricklink is an online marketplace where you can buy and sell individual Lego pieces. It's quite vast, and for the first timer, it can be quite overwhelming. But just in case, you need a Technic brick modified 2x3 with pinholes, rotation joint ball half horizontal top, rotation joint socket in bright light orange, then Bricklink is the obvious place to go. It's also quite an extensive database of all the parts that have been created up to this date. There are lots of people buying and selling vintage parts, so if you need a part to complete an older set, then an obvious place to go. There are other sites like brickowl.com and brickset.com which also serve the same purpose. Now, I also discovered that there's a long list of acronyms that like to be thrown around in the Lego community. And I thought I'd go through some of those with you tonight. Let's start with mock. I was going to throw it out to the audience. Any ideas what MOC, mock, stands for? My own creation. Nice one. We do have an AFOL in the audience, don't we? Hey? Closet AFOL, perhaps? So, my own creation. Essentially, it's a creation that someone has built out of their own bricks without using instructions. Pretty straightforward, right? All right, so we come to snot, S-N-O-T. Snot. Studs not on top. So essentially that's the building technique where you don't just use the standard bricks stacking on top of each other. It's about using bricks sideways, using bricks upside down, using bricks in different ways to create shapes such as this sphere up here. The third one, we've got ship, S-H-I-P. Throw it out to the audience again. Does anyone have any ideas? No? Okay. Significantly huge investment in parts. So that is basically a term used for if an individual has basically invested a shipload of their own money into a creation. Yes. And burp? The burp is the big ugly rock piece. So a lot of elements have nicknames, and burp is one of them. The burp is a nickname for this element here, otherwise known as the rock panel 4x10x6 rectangular, or part 6082. Last of all, NPU. NPU stands for nice parts usage. Now I'm going to explain this before you get carried away, your imagination runs away with you. Okay. That's good. The NPU is essentially the art of using parts in interesting and different ways. So if you look at this build I created a while ago, a miniature scene with this kraken attacking a sailing ship, you can see that the kraken is made up of two elements. And on closer inspection, you can see that it's made up of the lower jaw of a red dragon and the bottom half of Atlantis minifigure. So that explains, a little bit about NPU, and it's a big talking point when it comes to analysing people's mocks. Now, as a big Star Wars fan, I fell into the trap of collecting. And it was a huge rabbit hole. I guess Ekan can probably relate to how Star Wars and Lego market together. But I got into collecting these minifigures, and to give you an idea, there are currently 1,318 different Star Wars Lego minifigures, and over 50 of those are variations of Luke Skywalker. So, yes, it's a rabbit hole. But like all collectible items, some are more sought after than others. Let's take this Boba Fett figure from Cloud City set, released in 2003. So the average price, according to Bricklink, and this is according to recent sales in the last 6 months, this particular figure is going for approximately $3,107 in New Zealand. And you compare that to the original retail price of the set that it came in, 150 New Zealand dollars. That's a pretty crazy price. I can see some of you thinking, I wonder what my brother did with his Star Wars Lego. Oh, keep your questions to the end. Yeah. So there are websites and other resources that are purely dedicated to Lego investment, and Brick Economy is one of them. This is a graph from that particular website. So you can see from this graph that we go back to the set that I was talking about, 101, 2, 3, the Star Wars Cloud City. So today, if you're expecting to buy that in its box, you're looking at paying approximately $8,999 in today's market. So probably looks like a graph that Paul should have on his presentation here. So pretty crazy. I personally think those prices are just inflationary and crazy. It's kind of like the New Zealand housing market, really. So when is Lego not Lego? Now, when a brand like Lego becomes really, really popular, there is no doubt that other companies will want to try and replicate it and sort of cash in on that, right? So take this Deadpool figure, for example. Can you tell the difference? Yeah, sometimes it can be quite hard, like on initially looking at it, but if you look a bit closer, there are those little things that can identify a fake from a real one. And of course, there are a lot of resources online that you can use to determine, okay, is this fake or is this real? But obviously there are some things that are obvious. For example, the Lego stamp on the top of the stud. Now, sometimes a fake set is blatantly obvious. So let's take the Sembo block, Sembo Club. Now, you could sort of argue that, okay, there's not going to be any kind of copyright issues here if Lego, because Lego probably wouldn't create a nightclub with like a pole dancers or pimps and stuff like that. But on closer inspection, you can sort of have a look, and if you know your Lego sets, you can sort of see that the base model is taken from the Cafe Corner that was released in 2007. And then we come to things like brick arms. So there are some third-party companies that produce accessories and things like that for Lego. And although they're not endorsed by Lego, Lego would never produce things like this because of their core values. But these are sometimes accepted by the community because obviously there are quite a few people in the Lego community that build military vehicles and military scenes. The other thing that is widely available is custom printed minifigures and custom printed bricks. And this is one example, the Jacinda minifigure. So this is something that obviously Lego would not produce, but hey, it's out there and it's available. Now, I quite often get asked, how do I sort my Lego? And ideally, in an ideal world, we'd be able to sort our Lego like this, right? And I can see some of you have spotted the green amongst the yellow. There's a few people who are getting quite anxious about that. Yeah, okay. Solved. Saw that coming. But to answer that question, there is no right or wrong way. Personally, I think it depends on the size of your collection. Here's a graph that doesn't mean a lot to me, but it graphs the number of Lego bricks versus how you should sort your collection. So if you want more information like that, go to brickarchitect.com. But like I said, the more you sort your collection, the less time you have to build, and the less time it takes to find pieces, but it's a bit of a trade-off. So at the end of the day, hey, if you've just got a big bundle of bricks. Hey, just chuck it all together and go nuts, right? Anyway, back to my story. So in 2011, my wife and I, we moved back to Christchurch after 4 years in Melbourne. Post-earthquake, Christchurch was quite a different place to the one that we left, and a chance meeting with a couple of like-minded individuals led us to start our very own version of the Brickvention, the Christchurch Brick Show. The response to that was quite overwhelming, and I guess what we didn't realise was that it was going to be such a popular event, particularly for Christchurch. And what we found is that it was such a boost for the positivity of a city that was recovering from a major disaster. Another project that we started is the Imagination Station, which is a non-profit organisation that offers Lego-based learning and learning through play. Since it was started in 2015, it's found a more permanent home as part of Tauranga Library. So if you do feel the need to play with Lego, head on over there. Now, through these projects, I met a guy called the Brickman, who calls himself the Brickman. So Ryan McNaught, he's one of 21 certified professionals worldwide. And he asked me in 2015 if I'd join him to work on a special Lego project in Melbourne. So I was like, hey, how could I refuse? So I said yes, and I decided, I flew over to Melbourne for a year on this mission to build Lego. And this was what I was presented with. This is the Brickman workshop. And I thought, well, that's how you should sort your Lego, right? So yeah, a giant wall, all the Lego parts sorted by type and colour. Now that was a pretty fun place to work. But of course, you've got the usual things like deadlines and quality control and all that kind of thing. Now the project that I was working on was an exhibition called Wonders of the World. And it was an exhibition of 50 models, so we had to create all of those within the space of a year, based around that particular thing. Because of my background in architecture, I naturally gravitated towards the structures such as the Brooklyn Bridge and the Shanghai Pearl Tower that you can see there. I think my favourite part of creating these models was adding the detail. I'm a very detail-oriented person. This is an example. This is the Temple of Artemis, so one of the ancient wonders. And yeah, it was great to be able to put all the detail into the pediment of one of the facades. On the flip side of that, we had a lot of fun as well. So on the other end, we made sure that there were lots of jokes and things that people could have a little giggle about. So even though they weren't technically accurate, hey, it was something that people could come along and go, hey, that's a little bit different. So the other joy was creating models of places that I'd been in real life. So St. Mark's Square was one of them. And for those that have been to St. Mark's Square, you know that it floods quite regularly. So when we add the minifigures and the activity at the end of creating the main structures themselves, then we add a bit of fun, like this little scene here. So I want to take you through the whole process of one particular model, and that's the Taj Mahal. So in each case, we were given a certain number of hours to build each model. So for the Taj Mahal, it was 120 hours. Part of that was the research. So we spent about 10% of that time researching and working out exactly how we were going to put that model together. So a lot of it was hunting out pictures and plans online. Luckily, for the Taj Mahal, there were quite a few resources that I could tap into. So once I had the plan down, it was a matter of creating the base and then blocking out the walls. Now the trick with the Taj Mahal was I wanted a point of difference, right? So I said, okay, what's going to be different to the other Taj Mahals that have been made? Taj Mahal has been created as a Lego set before, and also has been created as one of the models at Legoland. So I thought, well, let's cut it in half. Great idea. I only have to build half of it. What I didn't realize is obviously had to do the inside as well. So a lot of research. What does the inside of the Taj Mahal look like? So I had never been. Thank goodness for Google Earth. So Google Earth, I was able to drop in and go walk around and say, hey, all right, I have to recreate that. Great. In miniature. So at least I had that resource to play with. And there was a lot of prototyping as part of the build, so going back to reference photos, detail photos, and making sure the detail was right. At that scale, you're not going to get every detail perfect. You're working with a limited number of bricks and a limited palette, but at the same time, you can get as close as possible. Wonders of the World was supposed to be a educational experience as well, so that was part of it, trying to make things as accurate as possible and make so that people could actually learn something from the models. And here's a cross-section. So I've managed to get as much detail into the interior as possible. So there's a little bit of a work in progress, down to the fact that it's got a little downstairs section for the tombs. And last of all, the dome. So obviously the most identifiable part of the Taj Mahal is the big onion dome on top. So I used the technique that I talked about before. Does anyone remember starting with S, N, snot? It's that, S-N-O-T, snot. Stud's not on top. Using studs sideways to create the dome, similar to the sphere that was on the screen before. The challenge here was that, again, cut it in half. I had to create the interior of it as well, twice the challenge. So add the details, add the minifigures, add a bit of landscaping out the front. I make it sound really simple, don't I? But that is the finished model. So, thank you. Just a few stats. 128 hours in the end, 26,000 bricks, approximately. And in total, the entire show, for 50 models, we spent nearly 5,000 hours on the entire show. So, at the end of 2016, it was time to come home. So, flew back. And I guess since then, yeah, I've still built a few things out of Lego. Nothing as crazy as what I worked on in 2016, but yeah, I still build a few things. I've made a few friends, like Barney here. And I guess, yeah, my Lego builds have been a bit more relaxed. So that's my story in a nutshell. Yeah, before I go, let me leave you with some final thoughts. Now, some people say they're not creative, right? But I think it's because they don't give themselves a chance. So my message to you is go and be creative. It doesn't have to be Lego and have to be a masterpiece. Now, if you're inspired enough to go out and buy a Lego set, and when you open it up, maybe take the instructions out and put them aside for a second and just have a play, you know? So the way I see it, life is like a box of Lego. Yeah. You can choose to follow the instructions, but sometimes it's more fun if you don't. Cool, thank you. All right. So, yeah, questions from you guys. Okay, down the back.
How do you decide what scale you're building those models?
Yes. The scale was definitely dependent on how many hours we had to build them, particularly for that kind of project. If it's something that I'm building for myself, then it probably depends on the elements that you have. For example, if you're building an architectural model that has a row of 4 windows on each section, then you're limited to the windows that are available in Lego. So if you've got windows that are 2 studs wide, you've got 4 windows, that's 8 studs, and that determines the overall scale of the model. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yes. Yes.
Craggle or no Craggle?
Personally, no, but when I'm working, when I was working for the Brickman, it was all Craggle. So Craggle, for those of you who don't understand, it's about gluing your models together. And as part of the Brickman team, we were told that all of the models had to be Craggled, just for safety and transport. So yeah. Understood. Yeah. All right. Yes.
You ever any cheeky 3D printing of parts that you just can't
Oh.
find?
No, not for me. I know there are some people that, don't mind doing that. Yeah, for me it's all about pure, Lego parts themselves. Occasionally I use a bit of Duplo.
Yes.
Yeah, some people say, oh, Duplo, what? But that's one thing that I didn't have in the slides, is that for a big structure on the interior, to build up the structure, you can quite often use Duplo without it being seen in the final model. So there's a little trick, but yeah, definitely no 3D printed parts for me. Yeah. Yes?
What's your opinion of these modern Lego sets that seem to have very specific parts that only make a particular thing?
I'm mixed about those. I think at the end of the day, all of those specific parts can still be used in different ways. So I go back to NPU. You'll find that there are lots of challenges in the Lego community where people are challenged to use a part that could potentially only be used for one thing, but you'll find that there are so many creative people in the community that they have these challenges and they come up with these crazy ideas on how to use those parts. So I think ultimately all Lego can be used in a creative way. It's just a matter of how you do that. So the new sets, it's always interesting to see what comes out. So I don't have anything against them.
Do they still sell like a base set of bricks?
Yes, you can get sort of basic bricks. Yeah. And we had another question behind.
How many brick separators do you own, or do you use yourself?
Oh, I have a drawer of brick separators, and it seems I don't know if they breed or multiply by themselves, but they grow. So it's one of those things. Like next time I look and we're like, oh, there's more in there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how many, but it's quite a few there. Yeah.
One more?
Yes, Paul.
What company sells the most tires in the world?
Oh, that's a trick question. Yeah, I'm thinking Firestone, but then you're probably going to tell me it's Lego. Yeah. I knew that, but yeah, I just thought, playing with you, Paul. I'm playing with you. All right. Cool. So yes, Lego are the biggest seller of tyres, which is an interesting factoid. Thanks, Paul, for that.